Making an image tile, at least in a basic way, is surprisingly simple of a concept. All we need to do is offset the UVs by 50%, and then we need to blend the middle portion of the image over that region in the center. And if we do that on both the horizontal and the vertical axes, then we have a tiling image, at least in theory. Setting it up in practice can be a little bit of work because we need to do other things to ensure that the end result actually has a visually pleasing end result. So let's get underway and see how we get on. I'm going to put down a sample node, and I'm also going to put down a UV map node. If we look at this UV map, we can see that we have some UVs. And if we plug the UV map output into the sample and we plug the text color into the texture of the sample node and then look at this, we can see that we just get the same result as we did before. However, if we go to the UV map node and go to U-shift and shift by 0.5 or 1, you're going to see that now we're getting a different result. In this case, we're moving the texture left and right. And 1 in this case seems to be sort of halfway across. Okay, but we're getting this weird streaking. So in order to deal with that, we're going to change the border mode from clamp to wrap. And we're also going to do the same with the vertical axis and set that from clamp to wrap as well. Now you can see that we have offset our original image by 50% in both axes, and it looks kind of terrible. However, this is useful because these are the seams that we would actually see if we were to take the texture into a game engine and see it on a tiling surface. And to prove the point, what we're going to do now is set up a little preview setup that's going to help us understand what we're working on a little bit more clearly. I'm going to put down a preview material node, and we're going to plug the output of the texture color into the base color. If we go and preview the preview material node, then we're going to see what we're getting, and it's the same except we see a little bit of shading. That's something we'll come back to later. You may have noticed that the preview material also has a geometry input. So we're going to construct a geometry input that's going to allow us to see the tiling of this texture. And to do that, I'm going to put down a new SOP import node. And unlike before, where we used an external SOP, I'm actually just going to double click it and jump inside. Now, I'm going to put down a grid node, and we're going to put down a UV project. We'll say initialize to best plane, and I'm just going to go and click this button so I can see the UVs. Now I want to see some tiling, so I'm going to put down a UV transform, and I'm going to set the scale to 2 and 2. So we should see the same texture in each quadrant of this grid. I'll put down an output node so that we know that this is always going to be the output of this SOP import. And now I'm going to plug that geometry into the preview material. And there we can see, it might be a little bit hard to see, but we're actually getting a very similar result to what we were seeing when we do this sampling. So here, we're dealing with one tile that's been split in 4. Whereas here, we have that one tile and it's just repeating 4 times. And we get those seams, just like we did. So how does this help us? Well, by creating this offset version of the image, we can blend it with the original version of the image. And all we need to imagine is that we have a black and white gradient across the middle line and the horizontal line. In order to create this gradient, we can put down another UV map node. We could actually use this same one, but we'll put down another one. And in this case, what we're going to say is we're going to then put down a node called mono, and we're going to extract just the red channel. Okay. So this red channel of the UVs gives us just the U, or the x-axis. And if we do the same on the green channel, then we're going to get this vertical line. Now, we're getting a kind of odd result. We're getting sort of one black portion and one sort of gradient. And that's just simply because we've shifted our UVs and some of these values are negative. So we could put down a absolute kind of function to deal with this, or we can put down a remap. And if we put down a remap, and we say that we want the input min to be -1 and the input max to be 1. And then we change this to a hill. If we go over to this cogwheel and pick the hill preset on the ramp, you can see that we're going to get this stripe. And we can do the same down here as well. In fact, we can just probably do this all at once, but let's keep them separate for now, just to keep things a little bit clearer. So, okay, we have our offset image, and we have a mask, and we have our original image. So what we're going to do is we're going to put down a blend node, and we're going to blend between our new image and our original image. And we're going to do it according to this mask. Let's have a little look. And we can see that something happened, but actually we didn't deal with the seam. And that's just because currently our gradient is sort of the inverse of what it needs to be. So I can just go and flip it. And now we can see that we've gotten rid of that line down the middle. So it's gone. Similarly, if we go to this other map and flip this as well, and then if we do a min operation between these two different gradients, then we're going to end up with a mask that's going to help us hide all of the visible tiling patterns. Now, if your Copernicus ever freezes up, you can try go ahead and hit reload current desktop. And then we can dive back inside, and hopefully that will have fixed that right up. I'm just going to go ahead and change my background to dark once more, or dark gray, and we can continue from here. And it might be a little bit hard to see, so I'm just going to show that we've now eliminated at least the most obvious tiling by increasing the contrast of this image. And this is a useful trick to allow you to inspect your end result. But has it really worked? Well, let's plug this output into the preview material node and have a look at the full material now. And we'll flick it off and on again, flick the contrast off and on again, in the hopes that this will update, because I don't think it is actually updating. There we go, now it's updated. And you can see that as far as the eye can see, we don't have any sharp lines between these different regions. So what happens if we go into the SOP import node and just increase the UV transform, so we end up with more repetitions? Well, we're going to see that we do start to see the repetition, and this is a really hard thing to avoid without removing all of the interesting details from your texture. But actually, this one has worked surprisingly well, probably due to the nature of the kind of surface that's being used. If you want to, you can go to these two remaps, and you can try and play with the contrast of the blend. And this might happen sometimes. I've just had a little OpenCL error. So due to the nature of Copernicus being a new tool, I'm just going to save my scene. And we'll pick it up where we left off in the next video.